Good morning, everybody. Hope you're doing well. I have the streams going and stuff now. Everything's set up the way that I wanted it to be. I have been doing this for about a year now, a little over a year now. My dad and I started on July 4th. Prior to that, for about the prior 6 years, Dad and I read this book every single morning. And this book, A Course in Miracles, has definitely changed my life. It's given me a whole different set of tools to work with, and I'm a collector of tools, especially tools for life. I have done self-help books, read just so many self-help books throughout my life, and Marianne Williamson was one of the fundamental changes in the direction of self-help stuff that I was doing. And after I started reading her and Deepak Chopra and a little bit of Eckhart Tolle and a couple of other authors, I started to understand non-duality in a much better way, in a pragmatic way where I could really apply it to my life and get the things that the Course in Miracles promises. I was raised in the 12-step groups. Literally, I started going to Alateen when I was about 13, and I stayed in those meetings until my 20s. I didn't drink throughout college, and I studied all of this kind of stuff through college. After college, I went to church religiously. I went to church, to a Unity church every Sunday, and one of the focuses of Unity Church is A Course in Miracles. They hold this document as a sacred document, and it is. Jesus came back and dictated through a Jewish professor this document, this big, huge thing, and we got the document. We called it the text at the very beginning, and there was a bunch of editing done, and then there's a whole bunch of political stuff about how the book came together, about which is the right book, which is the one Jesus wanted us to read, and this, that, and the next thing. But if you we can go back to the manuscript, and in the manuscript, which is kind of represented by the purple book that we have, it's put out by a group called Circle of Atonement. Their Course in Miracles is a little bit more complete, 50,000 more words or so, if you want to look at it that way, a little less edited. The blue book that most of us have, and I've got that up on camera right this second if you're following along on the video, the blue book is the edited version that just about everybody started reading when they got to A Course in Miracles. And it's a great book, but the instructions that it unlocks, especially as I started working with Tom and understanding it at a deeper level. There are a bunch of levels to understand this book at, but at a deeper level, you can pragmatically tap into the wisdom of the universe with this book. And I'm starting to see the glimpses of it, like light around the edges of stuff, like they talk about in the book. And a year ago, I never would have guessed that I could actually get to the point where I'm starting to see some of these promises come true. So I'm going to jump in and read, and if what I said makes sense, great, and if it didn't, then it'll probably make more sense the longer you hang out. And I really appreciate you guys being here. Today is lesson 196. It can be but myself I crucify. When this is firmly understood and kept in full awareness, that it can be but yourself you crucify, you will not attempt to harm yourself, nor make your body slave to vengeance. When you understand that it can be but yourself you crucify, you will not attack yourself, and you will realize that to attack another is but to attack yourself. You'll be free of the insane belief that to attack a brother saves yourself. And you'll understand your brother's safety is your own safety, and in your brother's healing, you are healed. Perhaps at first, you will not understand how mercy, limitless and with all things held in its pure, sure protection, can be found in the idea we practice for today, that it can be but yourself you crucify. This may, in fact, appear to your ego to be a sign that punishment can never be escaped, because the ego, under what the ego sees as threat, is quick to cite the truth to save the ego's lies. Yet must the ego fail to understand the truth that it uses thus to deceive, so that it teaches you can attack another in safety. But you can learn to see these foolish applications of the ego's thought system and deny the meaning of the ego's false witnesses that the ego's false witnesses appear to have. Thus, by rejecting your ego's false witnesses and its thought system, do you also teach your mind that you are not an ego. For the ways which the ego would distort the truth will not deceive you longer. You will not believe you are a body to be crucified, and you will see within today's idea that it can be but yourself you crucify. In the light of resurrection, looking past all thoughts of crucifixion and of death to thoughts of liberation and life. Today's idea that it can be but yourself you crucify is one step we take in leading us from egoic bondage to the state of perfect freedom. Let us take this step today from egoic bondage, that we may quickly go the way salvation shows us, taking every step in salvation's appointed sequence. As the mind relinquishes its egoic blocks and burdens one by one. It is not time we need for this. It is but willingness to follow the Holy Spirit's guidance. For what would seem to need 1,000 years can easily be done in just one instant by the grace of God. The dreary, hopeless thought that you can make attacks on others and escape yourself has nailed you to the cross. Perhaps your ego's belief that you can attack another and still gain your freedom seemed to be salvation. Yet your ego's belief that you can attack another and gain your freedom merely stood for the belief that the fear of God is real. And what is your ego's fear of God but hell? Who could believe his Father is his deadly enemy, separate from him and waiting to destroy his life and blot from the universe without the fear of hell upon his heart? Your ego's belief that you must fear a God of only love is the form of egoic madness you believe. If you accept the fearful thought, you can attack another and be free yourself. Until this form of madness is changed, there is no hope. Until you see at last that this egoic belief that by attacking another you could gain must be entirely impossible, how could there be escape from the fear of God? The fear of God is real to anyone who thinks this thought, that by attacking another you could gain, is true. And he will not perceive the idea's foolishness, or even see that foolishness is there, so that it would be possible to question the foolish belief that you could attack another and gain your freedom. To question the ego's belief that the fear of God is real at all, the belief's form must first be changed at least as much as will permit fear of retaliation to abate, and the responsibility returned, to some extent, to you. From there, you can at least consider if you want to go along this painful path of following the ego's thought system and making the fear of God appear real. Until this shift of taking responsibility for your own mind's thinking has been accomplished, you cannot perceive that it is but your thoughts that bring you fear, and your deliverance depends on you taking responsibility for what your mind thinks. Our next steps will be easy. If you take this one today of taking responsibility for what your mind thinks, from there, we go ahead quite rapidly. For once you understand that it's impossible that you be hurt except by your own mind's thoughts, the fear of God must disappear. You cannot, then, believe that fear is caused from without your own mind's thinking, from outside your own mind's thinking. And God, whom you had thought to banish from your mind, can be welcomed back within the holy mind of your higher self, which God never left. Salvation's song can certainly be heard in the idea we practice for today, that it can be but yourself you crucify. If it can be but you crucify, you did not hurt the world and need not fear the world's vengeance and pursuit. If it can be but yourself that you crucify, you no longer need to hide in terror from the deadly fear of God that your ego's projection hides behind. Your mind's decision to be responsible for your own thoughts is the thing your ego dreads the most, but is your salvation. You are strong, and it is strength you want, and you are free and glad of freedom. You have sought to be both weak and bound to your ego's fear-based thought system because you feared your strength and freedom of your mind and your higher self. Yet salvation lies in your mind's strength and freedom as God's Son. There is an instant in which terror seems to grip your mind so completely that to escape appears quite hopeless. When you realize once and for all that it's you fear, the mind perceives itself as split. I can remember that point. And this split within your own mind has been concealed while you believed attack could be directed outwards towards another and return from outside to within your mind. It seemed to be an enemy outside your own mind that you had to fear. And thus, a god of fear outside yourself became your mortal enemy, the source of fear. And thus, a god of fear outside yourself became my mortal enemy, my source of fear. Now, for an instant, is a murderer perceived within you, eager for your death, intent on plotting punishment for you, until the time when the enemy within your split mind can kill you at last. Yet in this instant is the time as well in which salvation comes, for fear of God has disappeared, and you can call on the Holy Spirit to save you from illusions by God's love, calling him Father and yourself his son or daughter. Pray that the instant may be soon. Today, step back from fear and make advance to love. There's no thought of God that does not go with you to help you reach that instant of fear and then go beyond fear quickly, surely, and forever. When the fear of God is gone, there are no obstacles that still remain between you and the holy peace of God. How kind and merciful is the idea that it can be but yourself you crucify that we practice. Give it welcome, as you should, for in the idea that it can be but yourself you crucify is your release. It is indeed but you, your mind, can try to crucify. Yet your redemption too will come from your mind and from your Christ nature, your higher self, your big S self in this book. And that is the reading of today. Today I read out of Tom's book, which is just like A Course in Miracles, but he clarifies some of the pronouns and things, and it makes it a little bit easier to read. His book is called Understanding A Course in Miracles Workbook Lessons, How to End Blame, Shame, Guilt, and Fear with Love and Forgiveness. And Tom also wrote notes to each of these lessons. And in the main text, he wrote notes to each of the paragraphs. And it was extremely helpful to understand the text itself. That's what I read last year. This year, we're reading the lessons out of the middle of the book, A Course in Miracles, and these are the notes to lesson 196. It can be but myself I crucify. It can be but myself I crucify is one idea that your ego vehemently opposes. For when this idea is properly understood, it marks the end of your allegiance to the ego and ultimately to its death. All of your ego's plans for your safety and salvation would become laughable and foolish. The ego does not want you to know that it can only attack yourself, since if it were known, you would quickly realize that your mind is the creative source behind your experiences. It would become obvious that your thoughts become your reality. You would realize that you alone are responsible for your own thoughts and that you could not be a victim of outside forces that are beyond your control, as your ego claims. Who do we know like that? The fear-based thought system of your ego would be uncovered as the source for all your pain, suffering, and unhappiness. You would realize that your ego is not your friend, but rather the source of all your problems. You would decide to drop your allegiance to your fear-based thought system and get a new guide with a different thought system. Your ego's thought system rests on the idea that you're a separate ego body in competition with other ego bodies. It claims that there are outside forces that are competing against you for the limited resources that you both need for your survival. If you are to survive, you must take from another, for what is their loss becomes your gain. The ego says that you are a body that can attack another without your own body being hurt. Because of this, attack becomes your ego's best form of self-defense. When you realize that you are not the body, but rather mind, whose thoughts never leave their source, you realize you are only crucifying yourself. The idea that you can attack and not hurt yourself is predicated on the belief that we are each separate ego bodies, and your body is you. If you were formless mind or spirit, attack would be impossible. Mind needs a body if attack is to be possible. But if you are a body, you must fear retribution or the revenge from the other party. You need to understand that it is but yourself you crucify, so that to attack another is to, God bless you. No problem, God bless you. To attack another is to attack yourself. This idea that all attack is self-attack, God bless you, frees us from the bondage of the ego's belief system. When this is properly understood, it leads to a state of perfect freedom. Our belief that we could attack another and gain something of value while not harming ourselves has led to your own self-crucifixion, right? We're carrying that rugged cross up that hill, aren't we, martyrs? When you believe that you can attack another because they have a body, you too must accept those same limitations and be vulnerable to attack yourself. And you become your jailer of your brother. God bless you, sweetheart. The idea that we can attack without harming ourselves leads to the belief that God can also seek revenge for our shortcomings. Thus, we transform a God of love into a God to be feared and something from which we need to hide. If like begets like, God, like you, is vulnerable to attack and will seek revenge upon anyone who fails to fulfill God's desires. God becomes a deadly enemy, and the fear of God is real to anyone who perceives God to be anything but unconditional love. Oh, I spent way too long in that mode. God is only unconditional love. It can be only our own thoughts that create what you fear, and your ego does not want you to realize this. When we understand that we can only be hurt by our own thoughts, the fear of God disappears. Our own mind and its beliefs are the cause of all the fear that we fear. All that we fear. All that fear. Fear cannot be caused by anything outside of our mind. Fear is always an inside job, which means that all fears are totally within our mind's power to control. If it is only our own mind that we can crucify, there is no reason to fear vengeance from any outside source, since we're incapable of harming anything outside of our own mind. When you realize that it's only you that you fear, you understand that your own mind has been split, that your own ego's thought system has been the source for all of your pain and suffering. It is your egoic thought system that needs correction, rather than your ego's guidance being your salvation. It has been the source of your own ruin. Because of your misplaced ego, your misplaced trust in your ego, that is, you've forgotten your true identity. You have allowed your ego to attack and replace your big S self with its own version of a little s self. This idea that it is but yourself that you crucify is the key to a resurrection of your Christ nature. When you realize that any attack is self-attack, you realize that it is your own mind that is the source of all attack thoughts. Pay attention to this. Therefore, there is nothing outside your own mind to fear, period. You've now identified and met the enemy, and you know that it is your own ego. We have nothing to fear but our own ego's fear itself. You no longer need to fear the world of God, the world or God, since you have never attacked or harmed them, nor have they ever attacked or harmed you. It was only your mind's use of projection that made it appear as if there were something else outside your own mind that had attacked you. Now you know It was only your split mind. Since your own mind is the source for all you fear, your mind must also have the power to correct those thoughts and heal your split mind. You now realize the power of your own mind and can make a conscious decision to get a new plan and follow a different teacher. Let the Holy Spirit correct all your erroneous beliefs, and the image of your little s self will disappear as you behold the Christ. When you realize the creative power of your mind, you're in a position to take responsibility for your own thoughts and make different choices. The fear of God dissipates, and you're only left with a God of love. Your eyes are now open. Your ego's fear-based thought system has been discredited. Desecrated works too, actually. But anyway, discredited. Now there's only one voice with a capital V to be heard. The only viable choice that remains is the thought system for love and forgiveness. You have no choice but to choose the truth. And today we get 3 questions from Tom. Thank you so much for putting all the effort into writing this out. I really appreciate it. It really makes it easier for me to get, and I think it makes it easier to hear when I read it. So I really appreciate the effort you put in, Tom. The 3 questions for the day are, and I'll put these in the chat so we can chew over them when we're done here with Tom's part. Who or what do you fear and why? If each can only crucify themselves, what is it that you should control? What is the true source of your fears? I'll put those questions in the chat. We can mull them over a little bit while we do this little activity that Tom put us together to help us take this lesson to heart. Thanks, Tom.
This exercise, like so many others, is fundamental. Is getting to the crux of the matter. This is actually uh, trying to reverse our total idea of what reality is and what the source of reality and your experiences are. And if we look at in the 20th century, the ideas that came out and the improvements in psychology, how the mind works, and quantum physics, how the universe works, we start seeing proof or things being postulated turning into theories that actually there is some creative force that brings form into our awareness, that actually it is the mind or consciousness that, and if we're talking about quantum physics, solidifies the quanta so that they take on visible form. It's the mind that, according to psychologists, projects out our reality, and that this world of form that appears to have some reality is actually the thought projections, to be technical, but is actually a world of perception, which means that although we're not the only mind out there projecting our physicality, uh, we are the source for how we wish to interpret those forms. What we've been exploring, especially in the beginning of the first 50 lessons and continuing as we evolve and become more aware of that, is the idea that it is your own beliefs that you hold that tend to color your world, and that uh, becomes how you experience it. So, this lesson is actually saying that, unlike what we've been taught, that our experiences are the result of outside forces that come at us, this lesson is basically saying that mind is the power source behind everything that you perceive and observe. And we can see some verification of that when we, and it's more aware of this, whenever you enter into a meditative state where you become aware of the power of the mind and you start moving your uh, mind to various ideas, various thoughts, and those tend to materialize in your own mind. You actually start seeing those type of uh, things, which indicates the power of the mind. So it's important, in as you move up on this evolutionary cycle, you'll realize the power of the mind, that thoughts become things. And this is something that the ego and the world doesn't want you to become aware of, because to do that, you'll reclaim your power. What you expose your mind to, what you think about, becomes what you experience. So if the mind is the power source and the projection or the projector of all that you experience, becomes very important to be aware of what we want to place our attention on. So the mind's the source, and since minds are joined, even in this world of time and space, we're sharing those thought projections. That's what solidifies this world of form. And that's something that the mystics have been aware of for uh, centuries, thousands of years. That's what scientists, psychologists, physiologists are starting to realize and also come to that same truth. So it can be myself that I crucify, because it's yourself that is the power source of your interpretive abilities. Little exploration into our ability of our mind to create our reality. So get into a comfortable position and just become aware of your essence. And your essence, as you start realizing it, it's not some body form. The body form is a projection of our beliefs. And the misperception that creates all fear is the belief that we could actually have a body, and that the body could be us, because now we believe that there is some physical form that places limits on us. When we think of the body, what do we think? We think of some limiting that we cease at some point in time. There's a separation, and that separation is really the belief that now we are a limitless, uh, individuated aspect of consciousness, somehow become limited and confined. And that if we're limited, we no longer are in control of our all events around us, because we now perceive that there are outside forces that are beyond our control. So think of that body and see that body and realize that it's my mind that now is placing my awareness upon it, and that actually appears to join and is limited by the confines of the skin. And that belief, that idea, demonstrates the power of your mind. Because now, if that's your boundary, you believe you can't escape it. But we can escape it very easily by just placing our attention, our awareness, wherever we wish to go. So let's just go in our mind's eye, in that controller of our experiences, into a different place. Place yourself in the world where you're going to be perhaps working today. So just become aware of your workspace, be it your physical house where you work on the job, maybe it's your office. Just become aware of that space and kind of place your awareness on it. As you do, just look around your awareness and just visualize that space and how form now, it's your mind that creates that space. It's your mind that causes it to come into being in your awareness. Now, we can do that with space. Can we do that with time? Of course. Place your awareness on what you did yesterday. What major event happened yesterday? Can you go there in your mind? Of course, because your mind is the power source. We could move, it doesn't have to be yesterday, to when you were perhaps 20. Think of your body at your age of 20, or if you're not 20 yet, a little bit before. And now look at that body. Can you bring that into your awareness? Can you visualize it? Thoughts become things. Your mind is the power source. The ego and the world, our society, doesn't want you to realize this truth, that you can go anywhere in your mind. You're not confined by form, because it's your mind that brings into your awareness whatever you deserve. Whatever you observe is coming from that mind. Psychologists tell us that this world of form is projected by our mind. Think of a time, perhaps, maybe when you were unconscious, when you weren't aware, when perhaps you had an operation and they removed your consciousness. The operation you was something that occurred in time and space, but there's no pain suffered, because at that time your mind, your power source, was not aware of the experience. It was the mind that was asleep. The body, no reaction. the cutting, the surgeon or whatever, no reaction. Why? Because your mind was elsewhere. Your mind is the power source for your experiences. And because your mind is that power source, it controls where you are, where you want to go. Think of a time in your past when something didn't seem to turn out the way you'd like it to, when you seem to have been hurt. Now, when you do that, what comes up? Is it your mind's feelings? It's your mind that creates that experience. If you wish, you could just observe those events, those happenings, you could go there. And if you decide not to place any judgment on the events, it will just appear to be a happening without any emotion, no pain, no suffering. It's your mind's judgments that places the experience in your interpretive mind. See yourself as being attacked, and that is how you will experience it. See yourself in that same event as being helped or having it a learning experience that everyone's volunteered so that you can grow and learn. And the pain goes away. It's your mind that and its belief about the event that creates that feeling. Your mind is the power source. Your ego, the society, the world wants to say, no, outside forces control what you feel. Outside forces somehow cause you to lose your inner peace. Mind is the power source. You are a spirit. Because you are a spirit, because you control where you go, what you experience, how you interpret things. It is your mind that can only crucify yourself. See yourself as a victim, and that's how you'll experience your world. See yourself as creator or co-creator in this mass collective consciousness. And that's how your world will seem to unfold and will color your experiences. It is but myself that I can crucify because it is but myself that can condemn me or make me believe I'm a sinner, that I'm the body, can make me or allow me to take on some limiting beliefs. It can be only myself that I crucify because my mind is the source of my awareness. Today, realize that you determine where you wish to place your attention, where you wish to go, how you wish to interpret the neutral events that are unfolding in this time space continuum, this stage we call planet Earth, this dimension of physicality where we can experience and come under the belief that we somehow are the body. That's our own mind's belief. We can also realize that the body, this time space, is merely a stage for us to learn and grow, a game board for fun and excitement, for reawakening to your true spiritual magnificence. It is but myself that I crucify, because it is my mind that creates my reality. And now with that, I realize that I decide. Today, let's become aware of the power of our mind. That thoughts become things, that thoughts, our beliefs, color how we perceive our world, how we experience it. And because we are the creator of that thought, that belief, we can choose the truth that we remain as God created us, that we are the power source. The Course says, remember this truth in this stage of time and space, this dimension of separation of the appearance and the world of perception. I am not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me. Nothing sources my experience but me, and nothing can cause me to lose my inner peace unless I decide to crucify myself. Today, make the decision and come to the realization that it's your mind that you need to reclaim as decision maker and decide what beliefs you wish to follow. Do you wish to follow the belief in lack, limitation, separation? This idea of that you're something limited? Or do you want to embrace the truth that you are the power source, unlimited, part of the indivisible one self? Make that decision. Realize that. And today, as we start maybe placing our attention once again on the game token, we're going to use our neutral communication device to interact on this game board of time and space. Make the decision that today you will not crucify your world. You will not crucify God by making a God of unconditional love into a God of fear. And above all, you will not crucify yourself, because to give is to receive. And today, I unlock all prison doors. I unlock the doors that allow myself, as the jailer of my world, to also go free. Become aware of the breath and just bring in that energy. And as decision maker, move that energy and reconnect with the body form, costume that you're going to use to strut your stuff on this stage today. And as you move that energy through the body form, as you get down to the soles of the feet, just send an energy bolt down, reconnecting to the stage, this game board, so that we can go about guiding, which is the act of extending the truth of what you are. Create a great day for yourself and your world. Namaste. The God in me recognizes the God in you. Thank
Thank you, Tom. Wonderful. All right, that is the reading, the lessons, and a little quick activity. And I'm going to stop the streams and we can get into our discussion. How did this feel this morning, everybody? The lesson 196. It can be but myself that I crucify. I can tell you, we've had some discussions already about how we've crucified ourselves in the last couple of days by getting into a conflict where the conflict part of it is optional, and the discussion part of it is the key. And sometimes by focusing on our feelings, we're gonna get caught up in the blame, shame, and guilt game. And so, anyway, when I see a problem outside, if I look at my part in it to play first, that's the part I can affect quickest. That's the part I can take responsibility for quickest, and try and defuse the situation and resolve, find a way forward. So tell me what you guys think. Linda, how's Australia? How's our day been? You're at the end of your day.
Australia's great. Our day's been mixed, so I've
Okay.
encountered some pretty challenging personalities, and otherwise I've also been bored and occasionally inspired.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good day. I'll take that.
That happens when we are bored. We get inspired. That's why it's really important to let ourselves be bored, be without any kind of external interference. The boring part of us is a path to inspiration too.
Yes.
So that happens with the ebb and the flow of life, right? And I know that throughout my years, there's been good days and bad. And when I look back, the patterns are definitely going in the right direction. It's taken a long time through the valley that I thought, but Rosa, I don't know. When in your life did you feel like, oh, I got this figured out and things are easy now? Or have you hit that yet?
I have never felt like that. Never.
Okay.
That things were easy and everything I can
I
relax
wonder
in.
if he
Yes.
ever felt like that. Have you ever
No,
felt like that?
never. Never.